Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. Welcome to my new video. Disclaimer: none of the event mentioned are true. No adult is being harmed in the video, and any adult doesn't have any type of negative role, so don't take it hurt. It is a pure factual story. Don't forget to comment now. Let's start our video. He was either locked in his study or draped across a couch with a glass of whiskey. His eyes half lighted, but sharp enough to notice every little thing she did wrong. She never knew what mood he would be in, only that she should tread carefully. When he finally walked in that morning, dressed in his dark suit and expensive watch, the entire house seemed to straighten at attention. He didn't look at her as he sat down. He simply reached for the newspaper, scanning the front page as if she didn't exist. "Good morning," she said softly, her voice polite. He didn't reply. The only sound was the rustle of paper. She lowered her gaze, forcing herself to sip her tea. It burned her tongue, but she refused to flinch. She had learned by now that was weakness was something he fed on. But today something in her chest felt heavy, restless. The silence, the indifference in his tone, in his dress. It was too much. "Do you have to ignore me every single day?" she blurted before she could stop herself. The paper lowered just slightly. His dark eyes met her, flat and unreadable. "Excuse me," her heart hammered, but she held her ground. "I am your wife, Jungkook. You don't have to treat me like a ghost in this house." He let the paper drop to the table, leaning back in his chair with a smirk that didn't reach his eyes. "A wife?" he repeated slowly, almost mockingly. "Don't fool yourself, Jiminy. You are not my wife. You are my punishment." The words cut sharper than any slap could. She felt them lodge in her chest, tearing her open. Her voice trembled. "Punishment? For what? For daring to slap you when you were wrong?" His chair scared back as he stood, his presence towering over her. "For humiliating me," he snapped. "For thinking you could get away with it every time you speak, every time you breathe in this house. Remember, you are here because I allow it. You are here because I decided your fate. Everything is under my control, and you have to allow it." The maids had stilled, their eyes downcast, the room tense with fear. Gemini lips quivered. but she refused to look away. You think that makes you powerful? She whispered. It only makes you cruel. His hand slammed down on the table, making the dishes rattle. She flinched despite herself. Don't test me, Gemini. You have no idea what I am capable of. Her chest ached with the weight of his words. She wanted to scream, to throw the tea in his face, to demand why he hated her so viciously. But instead, her voice cracked, barely above a whisper. Why did you marry me if you despise me so much? He leaned down, his breath not against her ear. Because making you suffer is sweeter than letting you go. The words shattered her. She couldn't hold back anymore. Her eyes burned as tears spilled down her cheeks. She pushed back her chair, rushing out of the dining hall before he could see her collapse. In the quiet of her room, she buried her face into her hands and sobbed. He hated that he could break her like this. She hated that her heart still beat faster when he looked at her, even in cruelty. Most of all, she hated that she was alone, crying for a man who seemed to enjoy her pain. That was her bad day, and she thought it would never end. But fate has a cruel sense of irony. 2 days later, they attended a business gathering. The ballroom was glittering, filled with chandeliers and a murmur of powerful men and women. Timini wore a gown chosen by Jungkook's stylist, her hair pinned elegantly, her smile practiced. She stayed close to him, knowing her role, the perfect accessory. He ignored her, as usual, speaking to investors, his hand resting on his glass instead of hers. But all along she stayed quiet, standing tall, refusing to give anyone the satisfaction of see her discomfort, that she was being alone, that she was not confronted in front of others all alone until she heard it. A group of men nearby were whispering, their voice carrying just enough for her to catch. John Jungkook really went low this time. One of them snickered, marrying his secretary daughter, and nobody. Must have been for entertainment. The other chuckled cruelly. Entertainment? More like pity. Look at her. Pretty face, but no class. She doesn't belong here. Her blood boiled. The sting of their words was worse than any of Jungkook. She could endure his cruelty in private, but strangers mocking them, was unbearable. Before she could think, she stepped forward, her voice clear and sharp. Careful with your words. The man turned, startled. Gemini is too tall, her eyes blazing. You speak so casually about my husband, but let me remind you, none of you could ever measure up to him. He built everything you admire from ground up. He doesn't need your respect, but you all should remember he deserves it. You don't have, but he have. So be careful. The room stilled. Her voice carried across the gathering, bold and unwavering. Even Jungkook, who had been mid-conversation, turned sharply toward her. One of the men stammered, "We didn't mean." "No," she cut him off. "You did mean it, and yet you don't have the courage to say it to his face. There's a difference between you and him. He's John Jungkook. He's my husband, and I will not allow anyone to insult him. Not in front of me." Silence fell. Every eye in the room was on her. She felt the weight of her declaration, the trembling in her chest. But she didn't waver. The men muttered apologies and quickly retreated, their arrogance deflated. Jiminy straightened, her teeth shaky, but her head held high. She turned, and her eyes met Jungkook across the room. His expression was unreadable. Shock, confusion, something deeper flickering beneath his cold mask. He hadn't expected her defense. No, after the way he had treated her. Not after the fight that had left her in tears. Yet here she was, standing before everyone, claiming him as hers. For a moment, the game of revenge faltered. For a moment, he saw her, not as his punishment, not as his prey, but as a woman who, despite everything, carried his name with pride. And for the first time, Jungkook felt something shift inside him, a flicker of guilt, of admiration, of something dangerously close to respect. But he said nothing. He turned back to his conversation, his mask slipping back into place. Yet that night, when the lights dimmed and the bedroom emptied, his mind replayed her words on a loop. He is my husband. And though he would never admit it out loud, the echo of her voice was the first warmth that had reached the cold corners of his heart. The mansion was beautiful, but beauty could be cruel when it caged you. Every morning, sunlight spilled through the tall glass windows, carrying its rays above the windows, flooding the marble floors with golden light. Yet, for Gemini, the glow felt cold. She sat at the edge of the bed, her fingers knotted in the sheets, listening to the muffled sounds of life in the house beyond, the clatter of dishes, the hurried footsteps of servants, the murmur of Jungkook's mother giving orders. Jungkook had already left for work, as he often did before she even rose. He didn't like waiting for her. He didn't like small talk at breakfast or goodbyes at the door. Their marriage was not a partnership, it was a battlefield. And he had declared victory the moment she said her vows. What remained now was his game, his rules, his arrogance, crushing her inch by inch. At first, she had tried. She had woken early, dressing carefully, waiting in the dining hall with a smile ready. She had poured him coffee, spoken softly, asked about his day. But every attempt met the game, met the same wall. He ignored her, he cut her off, he left her sitting at the table with words dying in her throat. You will never be what I want. The memory burned. She carried it like a scar. The days blurred into each other. She became a silent shadow in the house, moving carefully, speaking less. Jungkook, mother eyed her with cool disapproval, always finding fault. A glass not polished enough, a dress too simple, a smile too forced. You should be grateful, she would say sharply. My son lowered himself to marry you. Those words echoed louder than the empty halls. Sometimes Gemini would retreat to the garden, hoping the roses and lilies would bring her comfort. She would sit on the stone beach, her fingers brushing the petals, breaking in the sweetness that the house itself seemed to lack. But even there, peace was fleeting. Jungkook's presence haunted her, the sharp scent of his cologne lingering in her mind, the memory of his mocking eyes following her like shadows. Her misery was not just in his words, but it was in his presence all along. He had the power to wound her simply by not being there, by not giving her even the smallest acknowledgement that she existed beyond the humiliation he fed her. She longed foolishly for the warmth of a glance, the kindness of a hand reaching out. Instead, she got silence, walls, arrogance so thick it smoothed her. One night, she dared to wait for him. She sat in the living room, a book unopened on her lap, the clock ticking past midnight. When the door finally opened, she rose quickly, her heart foolishly leaping. "You are late," she said softly, unsure if her voice would reach him. He glanced at her, his tie loose, his shirt undone at the collar. His eyes were cool, detached. "Why are you awake?" I thought, she faltered, twisting her fingers together. "I thought maybe we could talk just for a while." He chuckled, a low sound that chilled her. "Talk? You and I? About what? The weather? The meaning of the spats you call a marriage?" Her jaw tightened. "You don't have to be cruel." Cruel? He stepped closer, towering her over her, his claw sharp in the air. "This is mercy, Gemini. Cruelty would be if I actually cared enough to break you. But you're already breaking yourself, aren't you?" The words struck deep. She looked away, her eyes stinging. When he left for his room, she collapsed onto the couch, burying her face into her hands. Tears slid hot down her cheeks, muffled sobs filling the emptiness around her. And yet, even then, she hated herself for crying, because tears gave him power. She told herself she wouldn't cry again. She told herself she would be strong, that she would find a way to endure. But the days stretched on, and each time he passed her without a glance, each time he dismissed her with a cutting remark, and from each passing days the cracks deepened. She began to fear that one day, that the day would come, she wouldn't recognize herself anymore. For Jiminy, misery was no longer loud or dramatic. It was quiet. It was the way she pressed her lips together instead of speaking, the way she smiled politely while her heart caved in, the way she stood beside him in public, perfect and graceful, while inside she screamed for air. The world saw the wife
of Jeon Jungkook, the man of power and arrogance. But no one saw the poor girl beneath the glittering dress, drowning slowly in the silence he wrapped around her. And if Jungkook noticed her misery, if some hidden part of him saw the way her shoulders sagged when she thought no one was watching, he never let it show. His arrogance blinded him, and her suffering became just another victory in the game he played. But the thing about misery is that it doesn't stay silent forever. It festers, it grows, and one day it demands to be heard. The night was heavy with silence, the kind that stretched far too long and made the walls of the mansion feel even higher. Hope you guys like the video. Thank you so much for watching. For videos like more, don't forget to subscribe and share it with your friends. Comment down. Don't forget to comment down and like. That's it for bye bye. See you soon, all of you.